That's us. Morning. Yeah, everybody struggles with the four-letter acronym, of which there are plenty in this industry. So, and I'll share with you a lot more that we're involved in over in Scotland. Yeah, I'm conscious of time. So I appreciate we're a little later, but I don't need to condense anything. No, I'll canter through it as quick as I can. So yes, delighted to be here today, and thanks very much for the opportunity to come and share, I suppose, the journey that we've been on in Scotland to set up effectively a centre of excellence that's focused not just around BIM, but very much around digital construction in the widest context, touching on the skill side of things, and then very much the technology side around where industry often says to us it's got some of the biggest barriers, I guess, to innovation and to investment in R&D is around the capital equipment side of things. So in Scotland we've been fortunate enough with the support of central government and a number of agencies within the public sector sphere to be able to put in place a facility, some expertise, and in some respects the centre word is a bit of a misnomer. It's really a network, I suppose, of accessible expertise, facilities, equipment right across Scotland, which I'll hopefully give you a wee bit of a flavour of. But to set it in context, the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre is funded as part of an Innovation Centre programme. That's supported by Scottish Funding Council, which is Scottish Government's arm's length education funding organisation. So all the higher and further education activity from research to teaching that goes on in Scotland is funded through the Funding Council. Highlands and Islands Enterprise and Scottish Enterprise are similar to Enterprise Island in terms of the enterprise agency trying to drive forward growth and business economic impact within the country. So that's our three key stakeholder partners. The Innovation Centre programme is actually a cluster of 8 innovation centres working across all different industries, some working cross-industry. So we are the only one that exists within the construction built environment space. I won't go through them all in detail, but there are others that cover off aquaculture, industrial biotechnology, sensors, which is census, data lab, which is big, small data, how you get value out of data ultimately, digital health, oil and gas, and stratified medicine. We work actually quite a lot with a number of the different innovation centres because construction is one of those underpinning industries. Often a lot of the activity that these other industries need to do rely on infrastructure or buildings or expertise that construction can bring. So we do work with quite a lot, but most particularly with data lab, census and digital health, there are huge opportunities, and part of the theme today obviously is around the opportunities that exist in terms of digitising construction and the data and the sensor technology that underpins a lot of that. So that's the family of innovation centres that exist, and one of the benefits that we can bring, I suppose, to the construction industry in terms of often sharing the ambition around their innovation journey is letting industry partners, organisations, businesses understand that whilst the construction industry can be viewed often as very traditional, conservative, very risk averse sometimes for good reason, it is an industry that actually innovates every single day, and it actually collaborates every single day. It might not feel particularly collaborative sometimes because some of the structures around that collaboration are a little challenging, but actually it's one of the most innovative and collaborative industries in the world, but it doesn't often recognise it, and that's one of the things that our role, I suppose, within the Innovation Centre is to try and drive forward. So from our point of view, one of the key things, and the roadmap strategy that you guys have adopted is absolutely great and absolutely vital to make sure that there is clear line of sight and direction for everybody that's involved. I come from an industry background, and one of the big investments the company I used to work for made was on the back of a Scottish Government directive and roadmap around building regulation changes, and that allowed the company I worked for to make £13 million worth of investment in off-site manufacturing expertise. The key for us as an innovation centre is to partner with Construction Scotland Industry Leadership Group. That's a leadership group in Scotland that acts a little bit like the umbrella organisation across all the different trade, professional, federation bodies. It's not an easy task that they've got, as you can imagine, but certainly when the industry needs to communicate to government in a concise, coordinated, single voice way, Construction Scotland is the vehicle that has the responsibility for doing that. So from our point of view, working with that industry leadership group helps us set and share the direction of travel around the construction industry's kind of innovation journey. The structure of the Innovation Centre programme is relatively simple. A call from the Funding Council came out in 2013. That was responded to by a whole variety of different industries And the premise was industry-led, industry demand-driven, but bringing with it the academic expertise that exists in our instance within Scotland. And how can that shape a proposition that industry can actually lead on, industry can actually invest, support and drive forward. Because often initiatives that are public sector led or academic led, whilst well intentioned, don't always have industry's absolute buy-in. So to flip that model and have a proposal that was industry led and driven right from the start was absolutely key. Our university partners are 13 strong. We started with 10. And as we've evolved over the last 3 years, that's grown as others have experienced from the outside what we've been doing and how we've been supporting businesses to innovate and drive change. So those 13 universities are collaboration partners, formal legal collaboration partners with the Innovation Centre. In terms of our legal structure, we're actually hosted by one of those universities. It's actually Edinburgh and Napier University. They provide all of our legal, HR, procurement background, all the kind of in-house support, rather than setting innovation centres up as individual companies, which would have made it more difficult for the funding council to support us because they can only fund universities or colleges. This model, which actually, with the benefit of hindsight appeared to be quite smart thinking, because it placed the universities right at the heart of the solution for industry. And whilst in the construction context we're aware that not every problem the industry has is going to be solved by an academic partner, often those collaborations we can build between academic, public sector and other industry partners are the ones that have the greatest chance of success. So that's our academic partners. And ultimately, I suppose that, in a nutshell, is really the role that the Innovation Centre programme was set up to challenge. I wouldn't suggest that industry and academia talk different languages, but often they're at different points on their agenda, their journey around various different areas. The focus here really is how do we harness and capitalise, I suppose, on the intellectual assets that exist within the university base in Scotland and help them support industry's need right now, not what industry might need in 10, 20, 30 years' time, but right now. So what's industry's challenges, opportunities, and how can the academic base support that? Our objective, I suppose, the vision that was set out for the Innovation Centre was just that, to champion innovation, because it's not always celebrated as well as it should be, connect Scotland's construction industry, and that's in 3 different ways. That's connect it better to itself, coming back to Lizzie's point about collaboration, ultimately sitting at the key of this. Connect it also into the academic base, importantly for us, and also connect it into other parts of public sector. There is a huge, I'm sure it will be no different here, there is a huge innovation support landscape out there for businesses to drive change and build the future ultimately, but a lot of businesses don't know that's there. I mean, how quick show of hands, how many businesses in the room here actively take advantage of R&D tax credit type breaks, which I presume exist? None. So that, oh yeah, great, right, so 1. So there's a lesson for the future perhaps. And that often is a big opportunity for businesses we work with. They have a huge barrier sometimes to their perception around how they innovate, how they invest in R&D, and if they know they're going to get some of that funding back, sometimes that can unlock the potential to start a small project which can lead to a bigger project, which ultimately can lead to the kind of transformational change that we're keen to support and see happen. In terms of our purpose, I suppose the way we go about doing this, really our function is to enable industry to exploit, importantly, global opportunities. As an industry in Scotland, we are particularly parochial. Construction industry tends to be sometimes. For those that know Glasgow, Edinburgh, the M8 motorway that joins between them, if you're a Glasgow contractor, you often get a nosebleed halfway along the M8 at the thought of doing something that far away. However, we work with a lot of companies now that are very digital, very global in their output, and they don't worry about barriers, they don't worry about working in different languages and different countries and cultures, because they're kind of born global. They sort of get it that that's the way the world works now. So a big opportunity for us, I suppose, is to look at how we take those kind of opportunities that exist for businesses that are developing solutions in Scotland and look at the global market potential for them. And ultimately mainstream that innovation culture. And for us, that is really the bit that underpins all of what we do. Products, processes don't innovate themselves. It's ultimately around people. People are the innovators, and people in construction that are going to lead innovation change are going to do it by adopting different cultural approaches to things. So yes, there's ways we do things for sometimes good reason, but equally there's a load of different ways we can do things, and that requires a different thinking approach and mindset ultimately, which is what we try to help businesses develop. Our key offerings break down into these 3 areas principally. So expertise and funding is the simple part, and in some respects, as a government-funded NGO effectively, giving away money you would think would be relatively easy. It's an absolute bloody nightmare. because of the frameworks you have to put in place and because of the match and because of the various different criteria. Actually, it's all the other things that go around that, I suppose, in terms of what we've invested in terms of the infrastructure, the expertise, the networks that we can build, is the part that's really, really useful. The money is just a part that either makes something happen a little bit quicker or a little bit bigger, often, but it's important, but it's actually getting those communities together in the first instance. So, the expertise sits within those university partners that we have. We have a great team, but it's a small team of 14. The expertise sits within those universities that we can deploy against industry opportunities and challenges. The bread and butter of how we deliver that is around events, not dissimilar to this, and around projects. Ultimately, we deliver projects. Industry comes with a challenge or an opportunity. We build a team around how that can be solved, and then we spend time making sure that's project managed to a successful outcome. And the outcome is really the key part here. Whilst we work with the academic base, ultimately the entire focus is on what does that customer, what does that client want to see happen within what timescale, with what success outcomes, I guess, are built around that, and they cut across a variety of different themes I will explain. The most recent addition, I suppose, to the Innovation Centre proposition is a thing called Innovation Factory, which I'll explain a little more about in a minute or two. But really that's our facility that allows us to support not just the rooms where we do meetings and do the kind of thinking and talking about innovation, but actually the factory floor, the workshop where we actually do innovation. So industry's in there using the equipment, using the technology, using the academic expertise to create the solutions of the future. And part of that now is also developing a training programme. So the fact that you guys have got an education and training element to the roadmap, I think, is hugely important, because we're talking about the workforce of the future. Ultimately, they're going to need different skills. They're going to need to work in jobs that don't really exist at the moment. So from that point of view, how do we make sure we've got solutions in place, a network, as we have across Scotland now, with the Innovation Centre, I suppose, sitting as the hub of the spokes that are the universities and other providers that can provide that sort of training expertise. Ultimately, a lot of it driven by industry and delivered by industry, but that expertise that can use the equipment, that can engage around all these different digital topics often, to create that kind of pipeline, I suppose, of talent in the future that we're all going to need. Some quick statistics on a Scottish context, that gives you an idea, I suppose, of the scale. Relatively speaking, a big contributor economically to Scotland, a big employer, about roughly, when you accumulate the kind of non-VAT registered and VAT registered businesses there, it's about 1 in every 10 jobs in Scotland in the construction industry. From an investment point of view, it's one that delivers greater economic impact in terms of certainly public sector investment, but it is a very fragmented industry. It's very fragmented. It's a huge SME base, often micro SME based, and as the bottom left slide indicates, it's not an industry that particularly exports its products, sometimes services, yes, architects, engineers, project managers from a Scottish context are world renowned, but when it comes to stuff, it's not an industry that particularly exports well. Kingspan is a perfect example of the alternative approach. So that's the general statistics. Our statistics, we were supported by £7.8 million core funding over a 5-year set-up plan. So the Innovation Centre programme was conceived over a 10-year life cycle, which is pretty unusual for a government-funded initiative. Normally you get 1, 2, 3 years at best, if you're lucky. And then if you haven't delivered, and around areas like innovation, it's very difficult to deliver tangible outputs in that sort of time scale for these companies. So a 10-year mindset around this is really important. We are 3 years into the first 5 years, which is basically defined as our set-up phase. So we were given the support and the comfort and I suppose the space to actually take this time to embed, I suppose, that innovation thinking within industry, which does not happen overnight, absolutely does not happen overnight. So to have that kind of strategy and structure sat behind us from a government point of view is hugely important, and if you can convince your purse string holders in that context to think in the same sort of way, because innovation doesn't happen overnight, it's got to be a long-term investment. If you fundamentally want to change the transformation that you want to see, you want to change the culture of industries, construction particularly for us, you have to look at it as a long game. So that's our snapshot statistics. Where we are in terms of the activity that we're doing at the moment is a bit ahead of where the kind of our KPIs, as you can imagine, being publicly funded, are numerous and often recorded, but that's where we sit at the moment in terms of the activity that we've supported against 112 projects, against 275 projects as our target, but it's a hockey stick curve, so over the next 2 years we have quite a number of projects to deliver, but we have over 160 projects in our pipeline over the next 2 years. Industry investment in projects is absolutely key. Without industry investment in projects, public sector, us, we're carrying all the risk. Industry might get some of the benefits, but often it's not got skin in the game, it's not bought in. So getting industry to support and ultimately lead, I mean, a roadmap, again, is fantastic. What you need is the passionate, driven, enthusiastic individuals in this room and across the industry to actually get involved in delivering that, because what you don't want to do is arrive in 2021 and go, it'd been good if we could have pushed that through, but if it only just took that wee bit more effort. What you need to do is get industry engaged, enthused and running at this, I suppose, with all its kind of best might behind it. So that's where we are in terms of the kind of more measured statistics. Some of the wider impacts that we track regularly, I suppose, is not just about innovation being something that involves greater cost, but actually about cost savings often. That's a big factor for some of the clients that we work for. Top right and top bottom right, for us, are really important ones. As an industry that doesn't export particularly well, to have products across the project base that we're involved in delivering returns of 6.5 million and 14 new international markets that those companies have entered into that are new markets, are some of the big kind of wins, I suppose, in terms of what the Innovation Centre is very much focused on helping those businesses deliver against. From the anecdotal evidence, I suppose, of those 112 projects we've supported to date, that's broadly how we would define, I suppose, the innovation activity that takes place. So about 80% of those projects are what we describe as evolutionary innovation projects. They tend to be with companies that are moving along slowly. They know they need to change, they know to do something, but it's not a big, transformational change. 20% of those projects are with those companies that wake up in the morning, hair on fire, we're going 200 miles an hour into the future, we want to put a dent in the universe. It's hard to keep up with them sometimes. The real challenge for us, I suppose, is to rub out that line in the middle and try and get them to collaborate better together. And there's some good examples of where that's been reasonably successful lately. Product and process innovation are kind of the obvious bits, I suppose, for the construction industry to get its head round where support might exist. So companies developing new products, obviously, developing new processes to deliver those products, whether they're off-site or on-site or procurement processes, it doesn't really matter. But what we've bookended both them with is business and service innovation support. The business innovation support part is very much around helping businesses develop that culture of innovation. So how does it think like an innovative business to then develop those products and processes? And then at the end, I suppose, bookending all of that, you can have the best culture in the world, you can have the best products in the world, the best processes in the world, but if you don't know where you're going to sell those products, you don't know what markets exist for them, that's where the service innovation support comes in, and that's working with Scottish Development International, UKTI, various different organisations to say, this is a great product, great company, great solution, where's the market for it? Because it might not be in Scotland, it might be somewhere else. Some of the companies that we work with, some of the organisations, I'll skip through these fairly quickly, but I suppose the idea of those badges is to give you a flavour that it's pretty broad. Sometimes it's big public sector procurement clients down to tiny, small start-up, great idea, but no, not deep pockets in terms of how to take this forward. Those are some more that we're working with at the moment, and again, some of the badges hopefully familiar and give you a sense of the scale. Quite a lot of our activity is focused on delivering support to industry via key clients, local authorities, housing associations, NHS Scotland, Transport Scotland, those sorts of big public sector procurement clients. When you put them as the honeypot in the middle of an innovation problem, industry will flock, we find, towards helping solve that problem, whatever the solution might be. Without them, and the offer then being industry, what do you want to do to innovate? The challenge is always, well, we don't know what our clients want, because the project's going to be different this time for the next time to the next time. So the investment in the R&D around that can often be quite challenging. Placing clients at the heart of the problem is absolutely key from our point of view. And some more examples of some of the organisations that we're engaging with at the moment. Industry over the last 3 years, we have a strategy, Construction Scotland strategy, that mapped out up to 2016, mapped out effectively where the industry wanted to go, what its priorities were. That was actually what gave birth to us as an innovation centre. Over the last 3 years, it's defined slightly more accurately, I suppose, where it thinks its real needs are, and it breaks down broadly into those three chunks: culture and behaviour. So this whole thing around how do we think more innovatively to deliver better solutions that ultimately deliver better outcomes for our customers. Productivity and efficiency are kind of outcomes, I suppose, of it, but it's a huge area of focus. So every single client we speak to who's got a challenge or an opportunity ultimately wants to do, I think you touched on it earlier, it's better, faster, cheaper. Often suppliers to clients can get two of those three right. As an innovation centre, we're hopefully trying to help them deliver all three. And technology and data ultimately underpins it, and that's where we'll go over the next few minutes, is where our focus is starting to sit really around the technology and data side of things. And I suppose ask that question, and I think we all know the answer to it, but is construction ripe for a digital revolution? If you look at it in broad terms, I mean, again, quick straw poll of hands, where do we think we are in terms of the industry? Think about it globally, think about it in an Ireland context, in a kind of UK, Scotland context. Are we cutting edge? Are we fit for purpose? Show of hands. Cutting edge? Fit for purpose? Ripe for change? Yep. Woefully inadequate? Nobody's that brave. Right, so I can preempt that what that's like, because that's what everybody says. And that is exactly where we are. So we're in that place where, we're watching other industries change, and I've got Louise's slide in a minute around where we sit on the digitisation index. But yeah, ultimately, I suppose that idea of change is really what us as an innovation centre get asked all the time. What's innovation? For us, that's the best definition we can come up with, I suppose, in terms of what innovation would mean to your business. It's about change that unlocks new value. The key part of that being change. That's the bit you have to be prepared to change. Now, whether you're taking a one toe in the pool or you're jumping off the cliff, it's some form of change that's going to unlock value to your business, that's going to unlock value to your subsector, your industry, and in our case, Scotland PLC as a whole. That's really what the Innovation Centre programme is geared towards delivering. And as an industry, that's 100 odd years ago, that's how we used to build things, and here we are today. And if I do that, it sort of doesn't look that different in some respects. And that's one of the challenges, I guess, for us. We haven't embraced the technology that other industries now take for granted, and I think that's where the huge opportunity lies for the industry. And that's in the backdrop of Industry 4.0, industrial revolution's coming around again. Is industry going to get run over by that bus? Is it going to be on the bus? Are we going to be wiped out by the equivalents of the Ubers and the Airbnbs and the Facebooks that came along and disrupted those industries? Those traditional players didn't see them coming. And I don't think construction industry is often great at seeing what's coming around the corner. So, who's all got a Google or a Alexa in their house, their home hub? It's only a matter of time before that, moves into other housing provision, building provision services, and it's probably not outside my lifetime that somebody buys a house from Facebook or Google. So from that point of view, change is coming. It's whether, as an industry, we want to be disrupted or whether we want to be the disruptors, I suppose. So that idea, is it time for change? I think broadly in every room I stand in talking about it, the answer to that is a unanimous yes. And if you look at it again in that wider kind of digital context, that I think for us is a really kind of evocative kind of quote. Change is happening, it's fast, and it's never going to be this slow again. So we either have to embrace it and join that kind of revolution, I suppose, or we're likely to not be here in the very near future. And I suppose putting this into context for us, this is an obvious kind of area to focus on, but in data in terms of the global context, that's the statistics. In year 2000, 5 billion gigabytes worth of data generated in the whole of human history ever up to that point. By 2010, we were generating that every 10 hours, and by 2017, we were generating that every 2 minutes. Don't know what it'll be by the end of this year, but it's getting faster, it's not getting any slower. And what does that mean in terms of the connectivity, I suppose, across all our building sites, our factories, the areas where we deliver the design and consultancy services? This might seem unrelated, but it's not, I suppose, is the message. And ultimately, I suppose, from our point of view, the challenge there is, how does industry lead this change? And we have a track record of sitting down in rooms like this and talking about what needs to be done, and I don't think anybody would fundamentally disagree with that statement there. Drive culture change through procurement reform, collaboration, earlier involvement, better training. They're all absolutely relevant key statements. The worrying thing is that was the Simon Report in 1944. So as an industry, do we learn, do we change, do we embrace the future and drive things forward? Who knows? But we've been through Egan. We've been through Latham, my personal favourite in terms of the title, Never Waste a Good Crisis, Andrew Wilson-Holmes report in 2008. Construction 2025 in a wider UK context and a Scottish context. Our own strategy from 13 to 16, we're in the process of developing our 18 to 2025 strategy at the moment. And most recently, everybody I'm sure will be familiar with Farmer review. So in that context, we know that we can write reports about what needs done. The flip is, how do we actually go and do it? And I think around the fact that digital strategy is now underpinned by the technology that exists already. Often the challenge, 10, 20, certainly back in 1944, would have been, do we have the technology to support the solutions that we want to go deliver in a smart way? I think a lot of the ducks are certainly, if not in the right row, they're in at least the right pond now. And that, I think, is an area where we can take huge advantage. So yeah, you saw this slide earlier, and for those at the back that maybe couldn't see the detail, that's where construction's sitting. So we're second from the bottom, just above agriculture and hunting, for those that wanted to see who's behind us. But yeah, I mean, you look at that as a challenge, or equally you look at it as an opportunity, and as I touched on at the beginning, in the context of a family of innovation centres, we can go talk to all those other industries and figure out how they did it. It's not always relevant at the minute detail to what we do, but there's a lot of examples there in terms of what we can do. So that leads us, I suppose, into a lot of projects that we're supporting now, and a lot of those projects are around using this sort of technology. Yes, in some contexts it's in a very tentative, exploratory way, but it's businesses that you probably, when you consider their badge, you would have thought that's not for them. But they are looking at robotics, they are looking at drone technology, they are looking at 3D printing and augmented and virtual reality solutions. So that kind of shift mindset, I suppose, shift in terms of big businesses, small businesses, really innovative businesses working with perhaps the laggards within the industry, is a really interesting space, and that's what will drive forward a lot of the activity that we support. A lot of it is in that area as well, around technology that can assist operations on site, or whether it's in a factory with robots building brick walls, who knows. A big part of this is really around the skills piece, as I touched on earlier, and for us, I suppose that sort of summarises, I guess, the challenge that we've got. With the advent of greater digitisation, one of the other innovation centres touched on Data Lab. Gillian Docherty, who's my equivalent there, reminded me last year that 2017, the sexiest job title in the world was a data scientist. And she can't keep data scientists within her team because they all start there and then they go to London and get paid 3 times as much as she can afford to pay them. And how far away is it? You touched on, Louise, the number of people within your organisation with BIM in their title. How many data scientists will work within construction organisations within the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I think that is a huge curve that's going to increase. So how do we make our industry attractive enough to bring the best of that talent in? Because I think that's one of the areas where, again, perhaps we've not presented ourselves best, whether it's around gender diversity, whether it's around flexibility as an industry, whether it's around our presenting our industry as pushing a wheelbarrow around the muddy building site, when it's a hell of a lot more than that. What are the ways we need to work together collaborative to make sure that that's not the impression folk that are in primary school at the moment think the industry is all about, and sometimes it's not about convincing them, it's convincing our parents and the teachers. So what do we need to do as an industry to drive that forward is a big part of what we're starting to support now as well. So one of the things that we run is an MSc programme. We're funded by the Funding Council to deliver an MSc programme which we deliver in partnership with Edinburgh Napier University, Scottish Funding Council, and it's called Built Environment Exchange, where 15 MSc students work on live industry projects for a period, and then we do a reciprocal trade with Boston College through a thing called the Saltire Foundation, where we'll bring in students from the Boston area who've been working on similar projects. And it's just another way of trying to expand, I suppose, the mind and the thinking of some of those companies that we're involved in. We also work or starting to work very much now with the colleges across Scotland, which is not something that was ever within our original remit, but we pushed very hard to point out that the college base, the skills that come through the college base, is absolutely key to our industry. So we managed to convince the Scottish Funding Council and Scottish Government to put £500,000 into a pilot project that we're leading with 3 other innovation centres, 4 colleges, a number of industry partners from construction, and there are other load of industry partners that work across the digital health space, and that's supported by, as I say, government and a number of other public sector institutions, and is about to start. But again, it's a pilot project to look at how we can bring the college base into the innovation space, which is not somewhere that they've often had a lot of success historically. We also work with the Construction Industry Training Board on their Future Skills programme, so we're going to be delivering a lot of future skills activity which links very much into this space, the topics, and working with Skills Development Scotland, which is Scottish Government's other arm's length training organisation, and a programme called Developing Scotland's Young Workforce, which again is very much looking at how do you engage young people within schools, school age people at the moment, into various different industries and explore with them the sorts of possibilities that might exist within those industries. One of the key things ultimately within this digital journey is BIM. And whilst we often view BIM very much as part of that digital landscape of various different things that the construction industry wants to get involved in driving forward, one of the key things we were asked to set up and are now delivering is a BIM programme. It's called Preparing for BIM. And it's built up of a number of different component parts. First part is awareness events. So again, similar to this, all over Scotland on a monthly basis, with awareness events that we've just concluded at the tail end of last year that are moving into implementation events now. So organisations that now understand how to spell BIM, and that's pretty much where the starting point was for a lot of them. And now they're exploring how they develop their BIM implementation strategies and plans, and who do they need to connect with to do that. So that's the kind of out there talking to companies about it piece. What we have within our website resource, a digital platform, was an online hub, and that online hub has all those various different components to it. The key ones I'll pick out, I suppose, is a thing called the BIM network. So effectively, it's a online network of like-minded explorers, I suppose, around BIM, where you can get information and connect with other like-minded individuals who are perhaps further ahead, perhaps behind on their journey. Another key part of it is, I think, what the BIM advisory service is a relatively unique bit. Basically, we sit behind that with a regular social media tool, effectively supporting it, and become a 48-hour quick rapid response to any question. It could be as simple and daft as you like, or as complex. And what we've built behind that is a team of industry experts that can answer those questions, or can at least create some debate and discussion around them. So that advisory service is open to anybody. This is online, so anybody can get involved and sign up. We also, with Scottish Futures Trust, CIOB and Construction Excellence, link into the BIM self-assessment tools that are available, and I'll give you a little more flavour around what Scottish Futures Trust are doing on that. Scottish Futures Trust, for those that don't know, is Scottish Government's arm-length public procurement optimisation body, if that's the right way to phrase it, I think. And they are very much looking at the public sector client end of it, where we're very much looking at the industry end of it, and how do you join those two things together. So the online hub is a good way for those that are starting out on a BIM journey to assess their capability, just where are they at that point. So that's linked through that website there. And there's a whole pile of resources, as you'd imagine, a whole suite of stuff there that's free to access. All of this stuff's free to access. Scottish Futures Trust have a BIM portal. It is a fantastic resource. If you are a public sector procuring client and you know that you want to procure better, faster, quicker, smarter, digital, this is the starting point for your journey, I suppose. It helps you understand when you might want to use it, why you might want to use it, and how you might want to use it. I won't go into details, but I'm happy to discuss, take questions and point you in the right direction of the team that run that, who have done a huge amount of work with not a huge amount of resource, I would say, and delivered something absolutely fantastic for public sector clients to get their head around what the ask is. And from our point of view, back to that point around placing a client as the key kind of educated driver of innovation for industry, it's a really useful place to start. More technically, I suppose, in terms of the innovation factory part of things, that's really what we conclude on. We've been able to build a service that we engage with industry around its problems. What we've just launched in September last year was the Innovation Factory. It's a facility just outside Glasgow. It acts as the hub to a whole series of spokes, which are the universities across Scotland, to provide technical expertise, equipment and facilities that industry can come and use. It has the soft meeting, talking, venue type side of things, and it has the hard go in and use the equipment and do stuff side of things through the hall. We have a BIM suite where we run BIM awareness and implementation events when they're located at our facility. We have virtual reality technology, we have augmented reality technology that industry's exploring a whole variety of different solutions around. A really interesting project with a team, actually we were talking about last night, Carbon Dynamic and Invergordon, who are using augmented reality technology. They build prefabricated modular timber shipping container size pods for a whole variety of different clients. Their staff now arrive in the morning, their production staff arrive in the morning and put on a set of HoloLens goggles, and to their screen is beamed the instructions around what they're going to build that day. And when they select a component off the shelf is smart, it's scanned, so they know they've selected the right component, big green tick. If it's the wrong one, big red cross. It just eliminates problems, it reduces waste, and it speeds up the process hugely. It's an exploratory project we're supporting with at the moment, but it's pushing things in the right direction. We have drone technology that industry is using for a whole variety of different functions. We have 3D printing technology, quite big and fast and flexible 3D printing technology. We have 3D scanning equipment industry can access. We have small collaborative robots. We have big industrial robots. We have CNC, digital processing equipment. We have a pretty unique piece of equipment, which is a form fibre line. Best way I can describe it is you put your stuff you normally put in the recycling bags, your jumpers, jeans, denims on one end, and out the other end could come a whole variety of different insulation materials. It's not a competitor, it's a research sense, but it's to help explore some of those areas where, I'll give you an example, everybody's heard of Harris Tweed. Harris Tweed are exploring whether this could be used for their waste materials, so it's looking very much at that circular economy side of things. Similar process doing things in an aggregate material sense, so it's taking crushed demolition material, various different aggregate material, and turning it into recycled higher value construction products. We have the UK's first large panel vacuum press, which allows Scotland to exploit a lot of the timber engineered products around things like cross-laminated timber, so a huge area of opportunity. And finally, we have an off-site manufacturing cell, so tying in again to the sort of components and the sort of systems that clients are often looking for now. It's a great opportunity for industry to come in, and almost on a try-before-you-buy basis. I think very much like Ireland. There's a lot of small-scale timber frame manufacturers who a client might come along and say, we watched Grand Designs last night and saw Kevin McLeod disappear to Germany and see the hoof house get built. Could we get one of them? And they can't because they don't have the technology, they don't have the ability to build large panel, advanced closed panel solutions. They can now come and use that equipment at relatively low cost, either around projects through a membership model or on a simple pay-as-you-go transaction, and they can try it, they can train their staff on it, and then they could potentially go invest in that. And ultimately, given we're driven by economic impact, that's where we're looking for companies to focus. That is our facility. When we launched it in September, that's what Andrew Wilson-Holm, the co-chair of UK Leadership Council, said, which was interesting for us because we often do look a bit parochially at what we're doing in Scotland. We didn't really get the impression it was a wider thing than that. But we're glad now to be part of the construction sector deal, the strategy that's been driven forward, and how, as we're part of a network across Scotland, how can we place that facility as part of a network across, at the moment, the UK, Ireland potentially, and wider. I appreciate I've run over a little bit, but thank you very much indeed for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. There's a lot in that. You have to do it slower.
Yeah.
Is there? Do you want to do a few questions now, and then we can do a sort of round-up at the end?
Bored to death.
That presentation. You say you do a lot of projects with industry. Would they tend to be one-on-one, or do you have any examples of where you work with a consortium of companies to fix a problem that everyone benefits from that they can't do on their own?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the slides in terms of the stats, about 70% of our projects are collaboration projects, so they tend to be multiple industry partners working with multiple universities. One of the best examples I would give you is in that area of off-site manufacturing. So Scotland has a lot of timber frame manufacturers, about 10 or 12 are leading the way in terms of prefabrication, smart 21st century off-site solutions. 10 of those companies came to us about 18 months ago individually and said, we've got these problems, can you help us figure out how to solve them? By the time the 10th company came with pretty much the same problems, we said to them, listen, we're not going to be able to physically fund individual projects. However, if you're keen to explore a collaboration opportunity, we'll work with you collectively. It wasn't easy. First meeting, they all sat around a table like that with their arms folded saying, competitor, competitor, I'm not telling you anything. 18 months later, if I tell you that they've just won Scottish Enterprises Collaboration Prize, that gives you some idea of the journey they've been on as an organisation of competitors, sharing risk, sharing R&D, sharing innovation, working around, 3 priorities for them are how do you build the brand of Offsite in Scotland, how do you develop the skills base that's needed, and how do each of those individual companies develop the technical R&D that they need. And interestingly, for one of the first meetings we did with them, it wasn't about bringing in other construction folk to talk to these businesses. It was actually, we brought in people from pharmaceutical and Formula One to talk about shared manufacturing approaches, to talk about optimisation and speed and efficiency. And you could see the light bulbs going on around the room, and we've got a consortium now who actually have just launched Offsite Solutions Scotland as a legal not-for-profit company that they've set up to work collaboratively around all the things that they see as needing driven forward within the off-site sector. So that is probably the best example of a kind of collaboration approach that industry ultimately, we kind of nursed it into Evolution, but they're now running with it. Right. Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.